The next parameter that we'll cover is a little bit confusing because it's called stylize, and we just learned about style. And they both control how much of Midjourney's artistic sort of preferences are exerted on the images that it generates. But the way that we use stylize is quite a bit different. We actually provide a number between 0 and 1000. If we provide 0, we're basically telling Midjourney and the model to closely match our prompt and not be as artistic or as stylized. If we provide something like 1000, that's a maximum value for stylization. And we'll have more creative images, more artistic, but they might deviate from the prompt. So the example they use here, I'll zoom in a bit, is of the prompt, colorful risograph of a fig. A risograph is a printing, I think it's a screen printing technique. And with stylize set to 0 here, you can see that it looks like sort of a 1970s thing, I believe is what a risograph is. It looks like a screen print, right? Blocky colors, very bright colors, not at all realistic. And then as we increase stylize, things start to become a little bit more artistic, all the way up to a stylized value of 750 here, where it doesn't look like a risograph at all. It's kind of ignored the prompt. It's using the subject of the prompt. It's getting the colorful part. It's getting the figs part. But the risograph part, I don't know why this won't open for me. Come on. Here we are. It doesn't really look like a risograph at all. They're three-dimensional drawings, I guess, or paintings. They're very pretty, but they're not exactly what the prompt asks for. Now the default value for stylize is set to 100. So that's everything we've done so far, is had a stylized value of 100, which is pretty low, but you can go all the way down to 0. You can increase it, and there's two ways of doing it. You can use the stylize parameter, --stylize, or --s. The other option is to use the settings command, which I'll just show you here. Run this command, and we have 4 choices for stylize. And this just sets our preference, and whatever our preference is will be used on all of our prompts. Just like when I change the version, that changes the version from that point on out. So it's not a one-time thing. If you only want to change the stylized value once for one prompt, use the parameter. If you want to always have a very high level of stylization, which I don't necessarily recommend, you'll see that it's now going to set --s to be 750 on all of my prompts. So I'll keep it at the default. That's where I like to leave it. There's a reason it's the default value. It's a little bit of artistic style added in, but it's very close to your initial prompt. It follows your prompt as well as it can. But if you want to change that, you can. And they explain what the different values are right here. So 50 is equal to style low. 100, which is the default, is the same as setting style to medium in your settings. If you set style to high, it will have a value of 250. And if you set style to very high, it will have a value of 750. Okay, so let me demonstrate this. I'm going to use a particular artistic style called a lino cut, which I think is short for linoleum cut. It's a carving. You take a piece of linoleum, you carve into it an image, like this. I had to do it in middle school. I cut myself very bad. I still have a scar from it, actually. And once you've carved that out, you then roll ink over the piece of linoleum, and then you make a print. So we get sort of chunky, blocky strokes. It's an ink print, and I want to try and have Midjourney create something in this style for me. And you can do colored ones too. It just requires different layers of ink. So you can make something like that. So this is the aesthetic I'm going for. So I'm going to go through all the different, not every value, but I'll jump through maybe by 200, the different options for stylize. So I'm going to go with a lino cut print of maybe the California coastal scene. Okay, so lino cut print of a California coastal scene, and then I'll set stylize. More often I'll just use --s. It's an alias, the exact same thing. I'll set it to be 0 in my first one. Then I'll try another one where I set it to 100. And then I'll just go up from there. I'll jump to maybe 300, and I'll be back when these are done. I'll go up to 500 and 700, and I'll have a whole set of examples to show you. Okay, so these finished up, and here is my first one, lino cut print of a California coastal scene, stylized set to 0. and it is very close to my prompt, right? It's definitely a lino cut. It looks like a lino cut, at least the aesthetic is there, and it's a California coastal scene, but I'm more worried about the artistic style. Then we go to 100, which is the default, and it still has the lino cut aesthetic where things are blocky. There's lots of patches of black, and lots of lines and carving lines. Looks like an ink print, but it's certainly more artistic and less of a lino cut. This is a traditional lino cut, 1 or 2 colors, much blockier. This is further away from that. Then we get to 300, where there's still some elements of a lino cut. We have the lines that you can see in certain areas. We have the dark blacks, the black ink, and then we keep going to 500, where now, I mean, this would be really very insane if anybody could make this as a lino cut, as any sort of block print. There's so many colors, so many textures and things going on. It's pretty. Then we get to 700. Again, getting further and further away from the initial prompt. More artistic, more stylized, less close to the prompt. The subject is the same. It's still a California coastal scene, but the lino cut part is different. And then here's 900 finally, where there's still a little taste of the lino cut in some of them, but it's way more of just an illustration, a digital thing, a painting, a drawing, who knows. But you can see that the artistic style from Midjourney has a much stronger presence as I increase that stylized value. Okay, I upscaled 3 and isolated them just so we could see the distinction closer. So here's one from the stylized where the value was set to 0, very much a lino cut. Here's stylized of 100, still looks like a lino cut, more colorful, more artistic, prettier, but still, I mean, even this is very hard to make using the lino cut technique, even though I'm not really an artist at all. And then here's stylized of 700, where you probably wouldn't even be able to tell that lino cut was originally in the prompt. Beautiful, really nice scene, but way more artistically controlled by Midjourney. Here's one more example of stylized I've just already run. I did a longer, much more specific prompt. Acrylic painting of woman's face, bold brushstrokes in the style of Basquiat, Neo-Expressionism, and this is with stylized --s set to 0. Very close to what I was looking for, very similar to the prompt. Definitely an abstract painting, Neo-Expressionist, bold brushstrokes, looks good. I increase the value for stylized to 100, and it still looks pretty good. It's more artistic. I think some of these look even a little bit better, although something like this starts to look a bit more pop arty. Again, I'm not an art critic or anything, but it definitely more, it's leaning away from the prompt a little bit. Then let's go to 500. They ran out of order, unfortunately, but here's 500, where things still have some of the bold brushstrokes, some of those qualities, but a lot more artistic, and it's not hewing close to the prompt at all. And certainly when we go all the way up to something like 1000, that's only amplified further. So it's not like it ditches the prompt completely. We still have bold brushstrokes, some neo-expressionist stuff going on, but this now looks something like a modern day, something someone would do on a computer, a digital painting, nice, but different from the prompt. So it's not always a bad thing, of course, to increase stylized. Just know that it does make a big difference. And if you lower that value to something like 0 or 50, it will stick closer to the prompt. One other thing to know is that Midjourney 5.2 specifically pays a lot more attention to stylize from earlier versions of Midjourney, like 5, even 5.1. 5.1 or 5, you would have to do some pretty high values for stylize to see a difference, like 80% higher than you now need to do if you're using 5.2. So there's a pretty clear difference here, whether we're talking about a lino cut or something like a painting with a much more specific prompt. It kind of follows the prompt, but it does a lot more of its own thing. Here, with a high value for stylized or for S, with a low value like 0, it sticks very closely to the prompt.